Absolutely. Here's a motivational speech inspired by T.D. Jakes' style. It is designed to embody his energy, passion, and deep spiritual insight. This speech doesn't mention specific names, but sticks to the central theme of prayer, faith, and divine movement. You need to understand something right now. You need to grasp this deep in your spirit, deep in your soul. There's a power, there's a force, there's an anointing that's ready to move in your life, but it's waiting on you to pray first. Oh yes, I said it, you've got to pray first. I know you're struggling right now. I know it feels like you've been up against a wall, that there's no way out, that every door is closed and every opportunity seems to be slipping through your fingers. But I came to remind you today that prayer is the key that unlocks the door. There is a movement, a breakthrough that's waiting to happen, but it starts when you connect with the divine, when you bend your knees in humility, when you open your heart to the creator of the universe and say, God, I need you more than ever before. I don't care how big your problems are. I don't care how difficult your situation may seem. I'm telling you right now, prayer works. Prayer is the most powerful tool in your arsenal. It's not about how eloquent you sound. It's not about using fancy words. It's about speaking from your heart. It's about surrendering your will and your desires and saying, Lord, I can't do this on my own. I need your help. Prayer is the key that unlocks God's power in your life. It's not about fancy words, but about sincere connection with the divine, surrendering your will and asking for guidance. Before expecting change or breakthrough in life, you must pray first. God moves when you take the first step in faith, demonstrating trust and dependence on Him, no matter how big or difficult your problems seem. Prayer is the solution that brings clarity, strength, and divine intervention. It's your lifeline when you're up against challenges. God moves when the conditions are right, and that first step is prayer. Waiting and trusting God's timing ensures that when He moves, it will be in a way that exceeds your expectations. Prayer, let me tell you, is the gateway to the extraordinary. It is the invisible thread that connects the human soul to the divine power of God. It is the breath of life for the spirit, and it's where heaven touches earth. Prayer is not just a ritual. It's a direct line to the heart of the Almighty. The truth is, many of us live our lives like we've forgotten the power that comes from simply talking to God. We think we need to figure everything out on our own, to strategize, to plan, to calculate every move. But we fail to recognize that prayer is where the victory begins. Prayer opens doors that seem impossible to open. It heals wounds that no doctor can fix. And it brings peace in the midst of storms that the world cannot comprehend. Because now, I know many of us have been conditioned to believe that prayer is just something you do when you're in trouble, something you do when you need something. But let me set the record straight. Prayer is not just about asking for something. It's about aligning your will with God's will. It's about creating a relationship, a deep, intimate connection that transcends the material world and taps into the supernatural. When you pray, you're inviting God into your circumstances, into your heart, into every aspect of your life. You are humbling yourself before the creator of the universe and saying, God, I can't do this on my own. I need you. Do you understand the magnitude of what that means? Do you get the weight of what you're doing when you pray? You are connecting with the one who spoke the world into existence. You are tapping into the source of all wisdom, power, and provision. The creator of the heavens and the earth listens when you pray. He doesn't just hear you, he responds. God doesn't sit in a distant throne, indifferent to your struggles and your heartache. No, he draws near when you call upon his name. Prayer is where God reveals his purpose for your life. It's where he speaks into your soul, directing your path, giving you the wisdom you need, providing you with the strength to endure, and opening doors that no one can shut. Many times we find ourselves searching for answers in the wrong places. We run to people, to circumstances, to books, to everything and everyone except the one source that holds all the answers. But when you pray, you bypass the opinions and limitations of others. You connect directly with the one who sees the end from the beginning. You don't have to wait for someone else to give you permission to dream. God has already given you everything you need to succeed. But it all starts with prayer. Prayer changes things. It changes you. It opens your eyes to see beyond the natural, beyond the limitations of your current reality. When you pray, you invite God's perspective into your situation. And when you begin to see things from His perspective, you stop fearing what's in front of you and start moving with confidence, knowing that the Creator of the universe has got your back. You begin to walk in the authority He's given you. Prayer empowers you to do things you could never do on your own. But hear me now, prayer is not always about changing your circumstances. Sometimes prayer shifts your mindset. It strengthens your heart. It quiets the noise in your spirit and gives you peace that surpasses understanding. You see, prayer doesn't just change the world around you, it transforms the world within you. It's in those quiet moments with God that He reorients your heart and renews your mind. He shifts your perspective, and all of a sudden the problems that once seemed insurmountable are no longer a faith. It is the foundation upon which every act of courage, every step of obedience, and every moment of victory is built. It is not enough to simply believe in God. You must also believe that He is working in your life, guiding you, and positioning you for greatness. Faith is the key that unlocks the door to the promises of God, and it's also the power that fuels the movement of your life. You see, faith is not passive. It doesn't just sit back and wait for things to happen. No, faith moves. Faith acts. Faith takes the first step, even when the way forward is not clear. I'm talking about the kind of faith that moves mountains, the kind of faith that pushes through the barriers of doubt and fear, the kind of faith that dares to believe in something greater than what you can see in front of you. It's that kind of faith that is required before you take action. You can't just act without first believing. If you don't believe, then there's no reason to act. But when you believe, when you have that unshakable confidence that God is with you, that His promises are true, then action follows. Faith precedes action, and without faith, action will always be filled with hesitation, doubt, and uncertainty. Too often, we sit back, waiting for the circumstances to align perfectly before we take a step. We wait for everything to be just right, for the doors to open, for the path. Struggles are a part of life. No one is exempt from them. They come in all shapes and sizes, whether it's the weight of financial hardship, the burden of health problems, the pain of broken relationships, or the feeling of being lost and directionless. Struggles have a way of showing up uninvited, challenging every part of who you are. They test your resilience, they question your faith, and sometimes they can feel like they're pushing you to your limits. But let me tell you something, struggle doesn't have to be the end of your story. It can be the beginning of something even greater. And prayer is the weapon you need to overcome every single struggle you face. When you find yourself in the midst of a storm, when life seems to be crashing down all around you, the first thing you must do is pray. Prayer is not just about asking God to take the pain away or to remove the struggle altogether. This prayer is about inviting God into your struggle, giving Him permission to work in your situation, and allowing Him to bring about transformation. When you pray, you're acknowledging that you don't have all the answers, that you can't carry the burden alone, but you trust that God can handle what you cannot. Think about the power of prayer for a moment. It's not a passive activity. Prayer is a force, a dynamic, living connection between you and the Creator. It's in prayer that you find peace that doesn't make sense, courage that seems impossible, and strength that rises when you feel weak. In prayer, you tap into the limitless resources of God and you invite Him to move on your behalf. But here's the key. It starts with you. You have to take that first step and choose to pray even when your emotions are raging, even when the problem feels too big to handle. Prayer is the first step toward overcoming any struggle. Prayer doesn't always give you an immediate solution, but what it does give you is the ability to endure. When you pray, you gain access to a supernatural peace that holds you steady in the midst of chaos. The Apostle Paul, when he was writing to the Philippians, encouraged them to bring everything to God in prayer. Everything, no matter how small or how big. Why? Because prayer connects you to the one who can change things, and in the process, it changes you. I know that in the heat of the struggle, it's easy to want to fix things on your own. It's easy to try to control every situation, to manipulate the circumstances, to put your hands on everything and try to make it right. But let me tell you, there's a limit to what your strength can do. You're human, and your power is finite. But when you pray, you invite God to step into your situation to do what you cannot do. Prayer is not just a way to ask for help, it's a way to surrender control, to release your need to figure it all out, and to trust that God will step in and take care of what you cannot. Let's talk about the power of surrender. Prayer is not just about asking for solutions or miracles. It's about surrendering your desires, your plans, and your will to God's will. It's saying, God, I don't understand why this is happening, but I trust you. I trust that you know what's best for me. I trust that you will use this struggle to bring me closer to you and to prepare me for what's ahead. And when you surrender in prayer, that's when the miracle happens. It's in the release that God begins to move. You may not see it immediately, and that's okay. Prayer is not always about instant results. But over time, as you continue to pray, you'll begin to feel a shift in your spirit. You'll find that the weight of your struggles is not as heavy. You'll find that you can breathe a little easier, that your heart is a little lighter. That's because prayer isn't just about changing the external circumstances. It's about changing the internal atmosphere. Prayer transforms your heart. It allows you to see beyond the struggle and focus on the bigger picture. It opens your eyes to the ways in which God is working, even when you can't see it with your natural eyes. But let's not sugarcoat this. Struggles are hard. They're difficult. They challenge you in ways that nothing else can. There are moments when you will feel overwhelmed, when it seems like the weight of the world is pressing in on you. But it's in those moments that prayer becomes your lifeline. When you feel like you're sinking, prayer is the anchor that keeps you from drifting away. When your faith is shaken, prayer is the strength that holds you steady. You may not have all the answers, and you may not see the end of the road right now, but prayer is the bridge that gets you through it. Remember, you don't have to struggle alone. You don't have to carry the burden by yourself. Prayer is an invitation for God to step into your struggle and make a way where there seems to be no way. When you pray, God doesn't just hear your words. He sees your heart. He understands your pain, your confusion, and your frustration, and he responds, not always in the way you expect, but in the way that is best for you. God's timing is perfect, even when it doesn't align with your own. There is a spiritual exchange that happens in prayer. As you pour out your heart to God, as you share your pain, your doubts, and your hopes, something shifts. You may not see the change immediately, but trust that God is working. He is never inactive. He is always moving, always positioning you for your breakthrough. Prayer is where you connect with his heart, and in that connection, something happens in the spiritual realm that you cannot fully comprehend with your natural mind. Sometimes God doesn't take away the struggle immediately, but he gives you the strength to walk through it. He gives you peace to endure it. He gives you hope to keep going. And when you pray, you are reminded that you are not fighting this battle alone. God is with you, he is for you, and he will never leave you or forsake you. Struggles are a part of life, but they do not define you. You are defined by your response to the struggle. And when you choose to respond with prayer, you choose to respond with faith. You choose to say, I will not let this struggle break me. I will not let this hardship define my future. I will rise up and overcome, not because of my own strength, but because I serve a God who is greater than any struggle I will ever face. Prayer is your weapon. It's your shield. It's the tool that God has given you to navigate the difficulties of life. It is the power that will carry you through when everything else seems to fail. Doesn't it? Have you ever been stationed in the dark? The situation changes. Did the God drop you down, or did you do something to it? So don't stop praying. Don't give up when the going gets tough. Your struggle is not the end, it's the beginning of a new chapter. And as you continue to pray, God will move. He will make a way. He will turn your mourning into dancing. He will turn your sorrow into joy. but it all starts with you. Praying, believing, and trusting that God is working even when you can't see it. Keep praying. Keep trusting. Keep fighting, because prayer is the key to overcoming every struggle that comes your way. There is a rhythm to life, a divine cadence that is set in motion by the Creator himself. We may not always understand it, but there is an unfolding, a sequence of events, a perfect timing that is beyond our comprehension. This divine timing is not accidental. It is intentional. It is the perfect orchestration of moments, people, opportunities, and challenges that come together to create a masterpiece of God's design. And while we may sometimes be frustrated with delays, perplexed by closed doors, or confused by the waiting periods in our lives, it's in those very moments that God is doing his most profound work. Divine timing is not just about when things happen, but it's also about how God moves in ways we cannot always see or understand. He is working behind the scenes, making sure that everything aligns perfectly for his glory and our good. You've heard the saying, timing is everything, but I want to challenge you today to take that a step further. Divine timing is everything. God is never early and he's never late. He's always right on time. When you look back over your life and reflect on the times when things didn't happen according to your plan, you may now be able to see how God's timing was, in fact, perfect. There are things you could not have understood then, but with the benefit of hindsight, you now recognize that every delay, every waiting period, every setback was part of his plan to position you for something greater. God's timing doesn't make sense from our perspective, but it's always perfect in his eyes. Sometimes we get caught up in the urgency of our own desires. We see something that we want, and we think we need it right now. We're impatient with the process, frustrated by the waiting, and disheartened when things don't unfold as quickly as we think they should. But God sees the end from the beginning. He knows what we need and when we need it. His timing is deliberate, and it's always in perfect alignment with his purpose for our lives. That door that hasn't opened yet, it's not that it won't open, it's that it's not yet time for you to walk through it. That opportunity that seems to be slipping away, it's not that it's gone forever, it's that God is preparing you for something even better that is coming your way. We often look at others and think, why are they getting their breakthrough now? Why are they succeeding and I'm still stuck in this place of waiting? But here's the thing, God's movement in your life is unique. His plan for you is tailored specifically to you. And his timing is customized to fit his purpose for your journey. You are not in competition with anyone else. Your life is not being measured by anyone else's standards. And while it may seem like others are moving ahead of you, remember that your time will come. What God has for you is specifically for you. The timing of your blessing, your breakthrough, your purpose, it will align with the unique path he has set for you. I know it's hard when things seem to be moving slowly. When you feel like you've been waiting forever for a breakthrough, it's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to feel like you've been forgotten or overlooked. But I want to remind you today that waiting is not wasted time. In fact, it's often in the waiting that God does the most work in us. Waiting is a season of preparation. It's a time when God is shaping your character, building your faith, and deepening your trust in him. While you're waiting, God is working in you, strengthening you, refining you, and getting you ready for what's next. If everything happened according to your timeline, you wouldn't be prepared for the blessing that's coming your way. If God gave you everything you wanted when you wanted it, you might not be able to handle the responsibility, the weight, or the magnitude of the blessing. Sometimes God holds things back because he knows that you need more time to grow, to mature, and to develop the capacity to steward what he's about to give you. Don't resent the waiting process. Embrace it. It's during those waiting seasons that God is molding you into the person who can fully receive the blessing when it arrives. There are moments in life when you will feel as though God has forgotten about you. You may look at your situation and wonder, why is it taking so long? Why am I still here? Why hasn't anything changed? But I want to encourage you to trust God's timing. Trust that he is not ignoring you. He is preparing you. He is orchestrating things in the unseen realm that you cannot yet understand. In those moments of doubt, keep your eyes on him. Keep your faith in his perfect timing. Trust that he is moving even when you can't see it. Just because you don't see immediate results doesn't mean God isn't working on your behalf. Think about the story of Abraham. God promised him that he would be the father of many nations, but for years there was no sign of the promise being fulfilled. Abraham was promised a son, but it seemed impossible. Sarah, his wife, was beyond childbearing age. Everything in the natural realm said that it was too late. But God had a plan. He had a timing. And when the time was right, he brought the promise to pass. It wasn't in Abraham's timing, but it was in God's perfect timing. And what we learn from Abraham's story is that even when we can't see it, God is working. Even when the circumstances seem impossible, God's timing is never off. He is always on time. And when the moment is right, he will move. The timing of God's movements is also reflected in the life of Jesus. There were moments when he was asked to perform miracles, to heal people, to do things that seemed urgent, but he often responded with, "My time has not yet come." He understood the power of divine timing. He understood that everything had a purpose and that there was a right moment for everything. He didn't rush. He didn't try to force things to happen. He trusted his Father's timing, and as a result, every move he made had a divine purpose. Every miracle, every teaching, every action he took was in perfect alignment with God's will and timing. Sometimes God moves suddenly, and other times his movements are slow and steady. Some of you are waiting for that sudden breakthrough, the moment when everything shifts in an instant. And that will come in God's time. But don't miss the slow movements of God. Don't miss the small shifts, the quiet guidance, the subtle ways in which he is leading you. Divine timing isn't always dramatic, but it's always perfect. Every step, every moment, every action of God is aligned with his perfect will for your life. Whether the movement is swift or slow, trust that it's all part of his plan. Even the moments that seem like delays are really divine preparations, positioning you for what is about to come. I know it's hard to wait. I know the impatience can rise up in you and the frustration can feel overwhelming. But remember that God's timing is not based on human standards. It doesn't operate according to clocks or calendars. His timing operates according to purpose, and when the time is right, he will move. And when he moves, everything will fall into place in ways you never imagined. God is not behind schedule. He's not running late. He's right on time. Every step, every season, every delay, and every breakthrough is part of his perfect plan. So when you find yourself in the waiting, don't rush it. Don't try to force it. Trust that God is moving in his time, and when he moves, it will be worth the wait. Because divine timing is the hand of God orchestrating your life, making sure that everything aligns for your good and his glory.